So, today's video, I'm looking at how I made Christmas crackers with foiling on them. You can see that, so some silver foiling on that one, around the ends. And on this one, the foiling is in rose gold and it's on the ends and around the middle. And people seemed amazed that I've managed to do crackers with foiling on. So I said I'd do a tutorial. Now, when I made these, I've actually got a die set that makes a proper size cracker like this, but I know it's very hard to get hold of. So as an alternative, if you haven't got a die that will cut out the bits you need, because it's the bits at the end that is the tricky bit, I've made a template, and it's not a copy of the die, it's actually, I worked it out from first principles what I needed to do, and it will print you a page like that. Okay, now this is, I think, about 120 GSM paper. It's a thick paper rather than a card. And I've got two templates. There's one for printing on A4 and there's one for printing on US letter for people who have that as their kind of standard page size. Okay, and on the A4 version, I don't know if you can tell on this, but it's slightly lopsided. There's an extra bit at this end and you'll need to trim that off. So you need to trim your A4 paper down to a length of 11 inches. Okay, and it takes just a little bit off the end, just a strip. Do make sure you take it off the right end. And probably the best way to work out which end is, what you do is you score on these heavy lines. Okay, you score on those and you fold them, and you can tell which end then really easily is the bigger one. Okay, so that's the end you cut your excess from. Okay, so, and I'd say do this in paper, A, because it's easier to print on, and B, because this one's in 250 GSM card using the same template. I don't know if you can see, but round the edges it's not really rounding very easily, and that's because the card's just got too much resistance. Okay, so I print it on paper, and then, these were done with a heavy paper, and then I've covered it with my fancy papers. Okay, so I've got some lovely Christmas printed papers from a 12 by 12 paper collection here, and this was Couture Creations Gift of Giving collection that they had for last Christmas. Or you can just use some plain card, or you can print some papers, and obviously you don't have to do the foiling part, you can just make crackers with some pretty papers. Okay, so that's what I did. Oh, and if you want to make the pretty foiled poinsettias, there's a separate video already on my YouTube channel about how to make those poinsettias. Right, so let me put those out of the way and explain how to use this template. So, I've scored on my two lines. Okay, it's important to do that and fold those first, because what I need to end up with is this, with these diamonds cut out. And cutting those diamonds out would be difficult if I was laying it flat and cutting diamonds. So what I've done for my template is I've made it that you fold it and then just cut triangles. So let me get my scissors, and you can see why I've got one I did earlier. Let's make sure the camera's focused, and let's bring it in a bit. There we are. So all you're doing is working your way along. Try and do this so you can see it, and then I can see what I'm doing as well. And just cutting out each triangle. And the printed lines are going to end up on the inside, so it doesn't matter if you can still see them. Okay, so you just go along cutting each of the grey triangles out. And at the ends, where you've got this bit here, you're going to cut up to the end of the line, like that, okay. And then from the edge of the card, you're going to cut in to where the point of the triangle is. There we are. And remember, most of this paper is going to end up covered up. So if your cutting is not the neatest, so you've cut away this bit and out to the edge there. Not sure that's focused. There we are. So cut away there and cut away each triangle. And just work your way along doing that. Okay, so you do that on all of those. Okay, so let me put that to one side and bring back the one I've got here. Okay, so fold it in half. You do that, and I've trimmed my long edge, my long side, so it's the right length. And you should end up with 1 3/4 inches on each of these bits here. Okay, and then you need to score again. Okay, so let me just, I use my paper trimmer to score, or you can use a scoreboard. But let me show you where you line it up. So with it folded in half, tilt the camera down a bit, focus on there. So with it folded, you line it up so that where you've cut in at the ends, the edge of your paper, so you're going to score across the widest point of each triangle. Okay, so I'm going to come along there. Let me try and tilt the camera down some more and zoom it in so you can see where I'm going with that. That's a bit too zoomed. There we are. So I'm scoring along the bottoms of the triangles. Okay, and you do that on both sides. Put that out of the way. Put the camera up a bit and zoom it back out. Okay, so you do that on both sides, and then you fold that side up and that side up. Oops. That folded, and then you can turn it over and you fold them both in. Making sure your little triangles stay inside. Okay, so that means I end up with my printing, and you can just see the little black tips on my triangles. I think if I turn it round, there we are. Now I can still see the lines and the black tips on my triangles there. Okay, so those are going to end up on the inside. So you don't have to worry about whether or not that's going to show, because those will end up on the inside. Okay, so that's your basic cracker to make the base of it. These bits at the ends, that's your overlap for gluing. Okay, so don't worry about the fact those are sticking out. We need those there. And then what I need to do is cut my decorative papers or some card. I've just got some plain red card in this case. I need strips to go at the ends, and I say they're 1 3/4 inches wide. So one there. I need a piece for the middle. Now printers vary a bit, so I suggest you measure this or put a mark on your paper trimmer at the width you need. Okay, you can put it with a pencil and just wipe it off afterwards with a baby wipe to make sure that's the right width. Okay, because people's printers vary a bit, and I will put the measurements on the blog post that goes with this video. So if you're thinking I'm never going to remember all this, please scroll down to the video description and find the link to my blog post. Well, I'll be explaining all this as well. And obviously there'll be pictures there showing things and measurements there and some photos and ideas. But some bits I can't explain in pictures, and that's why I made the video. Okay, so you need a piece of card. Now the piece of card, I use one A4 sheet, and by the time I've cut my 2 end strips and this, I've got a piece nearly the same width as this left. And I've had to make sure I put it really out of the way because I kept muddling them up and picking up the wrong piece. And I'd hate you to get everything cut to size and then foil the wrong piece of card. Okay, so I've got those cut. I foiled one of my end pieces already, and I'm going to show you how I did this. Okay, so I foiled that already, and then I've made it into a ring, and I've put a paper clip on it. Now I find it much easier to put these together if the paper isn't fighting me every bit of the way. So I'm going to leave my decorative pieces flat, but I'm actually going to kind of make my cracker using paper clips, not any glue, because I want to decorate it before I glue it. So you are going to need some paper clips to help you with this. That one's not a very tight one. Let's bring that round. So I'm just using the overlap. That's better, that's gone a bit tighter. Okay, and the other end as well. And then the middle bit, I'll bend it round. And if you rest it on its bottom, it'll probably stay. I don't think I can actually get anything on there. You might be able to tie something around it. I'll tell you what I could do. I could put this one around it and clip it in place. Because I want the paper fibres to get used to being in a circle. It'll make it much easier when I put it together. I'm going to leave that like that while I'm doing my foiling. Okay. So, ideas for foiling. So I've got here a selection of hot foil plates from my collection. Just make sure that's focusing. There we are. So I've got some Spellbinders ones, and the one I've used already and this one are a 2-part set. Okay, so that's those ones, and let's say they're Spellbinders. I've got some other Spellbinders ones from another border set. I think this was an Art Deco border set, and there's a couple of other foil plates in that set. So there's some more. Okay, so I could imagine maybe on this putting the row of dots down the middle, and then I've got Couture Creations one, and that is what I used when I made my crackers. So that's that plate there, and you just repeat foil it. I've got one that's a Crafter's Companion Gemini foil stamp die, so that does some lovely stars. And this is one of their borders. And you could use that and just repeat foil it. So think about what you've got, or what you might want to look out for as the year goes on, which is why I'm doing this video in February. Because if I leave it till November time, you'll have trouble getting hold of all the various bits you need to be able to do it. So forward planning, because you're also going to want things to put in your crackers, so you're going to need to think about that, and whether or not they're going to be homemade gifts or something you're going to buy. There's no bangs in these crackers, they're just like for putting a small gift in. And I did actually, you know, search the internet and find some mottos and jokes, and had quite a good time on Christmas Day. So the foiling. So let me grab this one. So I'm going to do to match my end piece that I've already done. So rather than try and put this on the GoPress and foil, or whichever hot foiling system you have, because it really doesn't matter for this, and try and get this lined up. What I'm going to do is use a piece of tape to make a hinge, and I'm just going to line my foil stamp up with the edge of my card, and then I'm going to use a piece of, I use a good quality low tack decorator's masking tape, and it says for delicate surfaces, and I always find this peels off my card really nicely. I'm going to say hardly ever damages my card. I'm not going to say never, but it's quite rare. So I'm going to fold that back, having made my hinge, so I can flap that backwards and forwards and it stays in the same place. And then I need some foil. I'm going to get a piece of my gold foil, and I find a big pair of scissors the best thing for cutting my foil. I'm just going to cut a strip off of here, wide enough. It can be a bit oversized, which is best, because if your line wiggles a bit, then you've still got enough foil. There, so I've cut a piece of foil. I'm going to lay that along my die, and it's a bit long. I'm going to leave the overhang off the end of my card. Okay, I want my foil to go down flat, so let's move that tape back a little bit further. There we are. So my foil has come that way just a little bit. Now I don't want it sticking down yet. That's it. So it just overhangs the end of my die. I'm going to flap my die back down, keeping my foil held in place like that, and then it's moved at that end a bit. That's it. Make sure you want your foil sticking out the edge of your card just a little bit, and if it isn't, don't foil and hope for the best. Actually peel it off and move it. Okay, don't push your tape down as you flip your die back, because that will pull the foil. Okay, need to come in a bit more at this end. So you'll notice I'm now on my third attempt at getting this in the right place. So it's worth taking the time. Okay, my foil is a little bit narrow at this end, so I'm going to trim a bit off, because it's actually tapering. And in fact, if I turn it round so I've got my straight edge there, that'll be even better. So there, let's go there. That's better. Right, so now I'm going to stick that down and just smooth my tape, and that'll hold the foil in place as well. So there, I've got my die stuck down with my foil slipped underneath. Okay, and I've got my excess foil hanging off at the end, just a little bit past the die at that end, and that's to avoid getting too much overfoiling, or any overfoiling if you can avoid it. Okay, so let's get the GoPress and foil. In fact, let me turn the camera rather than pulling it out. Okay, so my GoPress and foil it's sitting here. Let me put the camera straight. There we are. It's sitting here, it's been warming up. I'm just going to lift the lid, and I'm going to hold my hot foil stamp in my fingers, and I'm just going to lay this on kind of in the middle, with my card sticking out the end. Okay, it might just fit, but it doesn't have to. Then I'm going to add some card shims, and I've already done a test with this hot foil stamp and this foil, so I know that 3 card shims is going to be the right amount for this, but do a test on whatever you're using. So I need to wait then for the hot foil stamp to heat through before I roll it through. So while we're waiting for that, what I can do is I can get some foiling ready. I can get some foiling ready on my piece of card for the centre. So I might be wanting to do the same thing. I might be wanting to do something completely different. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this one. And I will do it, if I do it 4 times, I'm going to end up with that whole piece foiled. Or I could maybe use something like this down the edge and then put that down the middle. Yeah, that would be nice. So let's do that. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to position that. Is it there? Is this foil long enough? Is this one long enough? Oh no, I need a longer piece of foil. So bear with me. Oh, sorry. Just needed to get my roller foil. Now I've got a big roller foil here. People always ask me where I got it, and I bought it on Create and Craft, and I think I can't remember which company it was, whether it's Kanban or someone similar was selling rolls of foil, and they do that from time to time, and I do recommend you get them because they do them in gold and silver and some other colours as well. They're not quite as wide as the Couture Creations ones or the other branded ones, but I do find them really useful to have. I'm just going to cut a narrow strip of my foil, and using my big scissors I find it easier to make sure my line stays straight. These are very sharp scissors. Okay, exactly the same technique again, flip it up. Put the foil on, flip it back, okay. I think I might add another piece of my foil. I'm going to add another piece of tape because it's a long foil plate, this. Piece up that end. There. Okay, so while I've been doing that, my GoPress and foil has heated up and the light's gone green. So let's go back to this one and roll it through. Right, so let's lift this up. So I'm going to take my shims off and I'm going to carefully pick this up so that it's still hanging by the tape. Now put my hot plate back on the base so that it warms up, ready for the next one. But before I put the next one on, what I'm going to do is, tilt the camera down further, is I'm going to just carefully roll the die back. I'm not going to untape it, I'm just going to roll it back a little bit, and I'm going to peel my foil up and just check that my foiling has worked all the way along, because if it hasn't at this stage I can press that back down, put the tape back down, put it back on the GoPress, maybe add another shim, heat it for longer, whatever I think I need to do, and that way I don't waste my card and my foil, okay, and my time. So that's fine. So now I can peel that back, take the foil away, and there's my pattern along there. Okay, So while I'm getting the next bit of that ready, I'm going to put this one on the GoPress and fold it in exactly the same way. I'm going to put the die on, leave the card sticking out the end. I think I might need my big shims. So I've just put that on there to heat up. So now I take the tape off my die. Okay. Let me zoom in a bit. Okay, so this is a nice repeating pattern. Okay, so what I can do, rather than trying to just match it on the end, I can actually move this in a bit, and you can actually, it's a bit like when you've got a die that hasn't quite cut, and you put your die back in, and you can feel when it's locked into place. It's the same with this. If I slide this backwards and forwards, I can feel, like, you know, it's quite a good pattern for matching up, but I can feel when I'm in the right place. Okay, so have enough of your pattern overlapping that you can feel it locked in. Okay, and it just so happens that with this particular foil plate, when I overlap it that amount, it just comes to the end there, and that's fine. But you know, I could go another one along and still lock it in, particularly as I'm lining up with the edge of the card here. Let me zoom in so you can see what I'm doing. So yeah, so I'm looking into the pattern up here with this end of the die, or the foil stamp. I can feel that that's in the right place and make sure it's lined up the edge of the card just the same. Yeah, that's locked in there. And then when I'm happy with it, now you can't really see that, can you? But it's locked in, it's lined up there. No, that is at full zoom. So that's there. And then I'm going to put my tape on as before. Okay, and then I can roll it back and put my foil on. So let me get a piece of foil. I have to bring this over, move this away so that I can actually cut straight. That's it. Okay. So that's my normal zoom. Okay, so I've got this tape down. I'm going to flip it up. Add the foil. It doesn't need to be quite so long, this piece of foil, so I will trim off the excess in a minute. I'm going to overlap the foil with the pattern from the previous foiling just a little bit. Flip the foil plate back and you should be able to feel if it's locked in. Switch the tape down, and then that can go on the GoPress and foil in a minute, because I left the other one warming up. Let me grab that. Yeah. Just roll it through the die cutting machine. Okay, let's get this off the GoPress and foil. And I'm going to put the next one on. So I'm going to put this one onto the GoPress and foil, just as I did before. So I'm going to put the, let me get the hot plate over. So there's my hot plate. Oops. here's my card and my foil. Just make sure it hasn't moved. Okay, so I'm just going to turn it over, put the foil plate down on there, put my shims on. They don't have to cover the whole length of the card, just where the foil plate is, and warm that up by plugging it back in. So that needs to warm up. This should have foiled. So I'm just going to flip it up and just roll it back enough to release the foil. And then just look about untaping everything. And there's my foil. There's my foiling. And if I'm happy with my foiling, I can then untape my foil stamp. And then I can move it along ready for the next one. So, again, overlap enough that you probably want to overlap more on this so to make it easier to put onto your hot plate. So maybe there. And these two pieces of tape. Flip up the die. Now I've got a piece of foil that had some damage on it, so I'm going to cut a piece from that just for this short length. Not that way. Okay, so that is ready to go. This should be ready to roll. Remember, we left it warming up. Hello there. Right, so I've finished foiling my other end and I've rolled it up and put a paper clip on it to get used to curving. I've finished the edges of that piece with the dots. Okay, and then I thought, well, I need some decoration in the middle of that. Optional, of course. And I thought I was couldn't decide between that one, which is another Spellbinders one, or this one, which is for the Gemini. And because it deals with the issue of having a bigger plate, I'm going to do the Gemini one, but I'm going to do it in exactly the same way. But I need to make sure I get it kind of in the middle and straight. So just be a bit careful as you're doing that. Now I've got, and I just need to get it out, so bear with me, a craft ruler. So I've usually got it on my desk, but I had to tidy up. That's it. So it's one of these rulers. It's got, can you see the grid on it? Okay, and that's really useful because I can line that up with the edge of my card and my hot foil plate, and make sure that my hot foil plate is straight. Okay, so that would be straight that side, and that's 2.5 centimetres. I'm just going to bring it around the other side and see if I've got it in the middle going the other way. And that is 1, 2, 3, 4, just under 2.5 centimetres. I'm just going to edge it over just a tiny little bit and then leave that line going down the outside. So there we are, that should be in the middle. And when I've got decoration on my crackers, nobody will be able to really tell whether or not it's precisely down the centre. So I've put the end of it kind of in the middle. Okay, I'm going to get some more tape. Now my pieces of tape lasted quite well. I did a few runs, but they were starting to fall apart. So I've had to get some fresh ones. So I'm just going to line up my line on my ruler so that I'm level all the way along. That, as I say, is just going to make sure that's straight. Okay, so I've made my hinge on one side. Let's put the camera down a bit. Okay, so I'm just using my ruler to line up with this, line the lines on the ruler up with the edge of my card, and then that means I can make sure my foil stamp is straight, and I've put my pieces of tape on. Then I can put some foil underneath. That's a bit long. Let's cut some of that off. Turn it round so I can cut without being at a strange angle. Let's cut that much off the end. Okay, so exactly the same. I'm going to flip up my foil stamp, put my foil, just draw it back a little bit, put the foil up against the edge of the tape, have it overhanging just a little bit at the end, and then flip it back. Okay, and that has hopefully gone back in exactly the right place. I don't think my foil's quite straight. I think my foil might not be quite wide enough because it's got a wiggle in it, so I'm going to cut a fresh piece. So just bear with me. Is that going to be wide enough? No. Right. Fresh piece of foil. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it down. Move the die back a bit more as I flip down. And flip it down. And I'm going to put a little crease in it up against the edge of the die. And I'm going to take it out again and use that crease as a trim line to cut it to the right size. It's only a very faint line it's made. There. And then I can put it back in. That's it. And then I can just see my foil sticking out a little bit underneath my die. I might cut a bit more of that off, just because it will get all over my card shims. Right, so exactly the same procedure, okay? It's just all a bit bigger. Let me turn the camera. There we are. So you can see I've got my GoPress and foil ready to go there. So I'm going to, as before, put the die on. It's quite a long die, this. But it's not quite as long as the GoPress and foil. So I'm going to put the bit I want foiled kind of nicely in the middle there. I'm going to put my card shims on. Again, they only need to cover the area I'm foiling. Close the lid, and then I need to let it warm up. Okay, and then when I've done that, I shall need to flip the die around the other way. So bear with me. So I have heated that up, run it through my die cutting machine. Okay, so now I can fold back my die. Now let me just add, this is obviously a much heavier die or foil stamp than this. So when I was getting off the GoPress and foil, I did use my pick and lift to pick up the die and bring the card with it, rather than just relying on my tape holding. So that has foiled nicely. Okay. Now, this isn't a repeating pattern. like the dots. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move the die along or turn it round, whichever you want to do. It won't really matter because the pattern stops at the end of the plate. So long as my sort of two lots of foiling roughly line up, it won't matter that I haven't overlapped. Okay, in fact I don't particularly want to overlap. So literally just sort of touching where the end of the foiling was. Is there going to be a dot there? Yeah, let's do it that way. Okay, and obviously, you know, you might be using completely different plates. So I'm going to do the same thing with my ruler again. I'm going to put my line that's on the ruler, and it happens to be the 2.5 centimetre, so it's just to the outside edge of the card. Put my foil stamp up against it so that I know that it's straight. Okay, I'm not convinced that that is in the same alignment. Move that over just a little bit. Oh, that's better. Right. Okay, and then I can put my tape on again. Okay, another piece of foil. I don't know if the piece I had left over is wide enough, and but not at that end. What about that piece? Now that piece will do nicely. Okay, so I think that's probably the other half. So flip it back, foil underneath, make sure your foil hasn't gone crooked like that. Okay, just about do it. It's just about, so not much waste here. So then that goes on just the same as it did before the other end of the die on the GoPress and foil and your card sticking out the end. Okay, so I'm going to put that on and foil that and get ready to put the cracker together. So bear with me. Okay, so I've finished my foiling. So I'm going to roll this round into a tube and use a paper clip so that it gets used to being curved. And that'll make it easier when I'm sticking the whole thing down. Okay, so I've got my 2 end pieces, and I've got my cracker that I've also had curling. So I'm going to take my paper clips off now. Okay, and I want to put all my decoration on before I roll it back up again. Okay, because otherwise it makes it very difficult to get things stuck down straight. Okay, so I've got my decoration pieces for here, and those will go one at either end. And I've put a piece of double-sided tape just at the end, and I'm going to use wet glue for the rest of the sticking. Okay, I'm just going to peel that up a little bit, and I'm going to grab some wet glue. Now I've got mine in a little bottle with a fine tip, but you might also want to have a piece of card handy that you can put some glue on and use for poking underneath for any bits that you've missed if you're gluing. So I'm going to put some glue on here, go all the way along, Okay. At the edges, I'm not too, actually I don't want glue at the very end. I'm going to put that on later, so let me just wipe that bit off. Came a bit close to the end. Let me just put the camera up a little bit, it's a bit too far down. So I've put my glue on, I'm not putting glue at the end, okay? We'll put glue on the end, but we'll poke it in afterwards, okay? And this is card, it's, you know, the glue's not going to show through. So enough glue that it's not going to dry immediately, okay? So I want to put this on and I'm going to butt it up against the end there and make sure I'm straight and stick my little piece of tape down there, and then I'm going to peel out the double-sided tape there. So that is stuck, and then I want to glue it, but I want to make sure it can still curl round. I can't curl it all the way around because I still need to stick the rest down. So that's why you need to get everything ready before you do this. But just kind of, while the glue's still wet, just kind of curve it in your hands. Like that, okay? Because that'll make it much easier when you come to put the whole thing together. I need this one. It's not had quite so long to learn to curl, but we go with what we can do. So, oops, piece of double-sided tape at the end. Let's see how long I need this. About there. Okay, so just across at one end, peel a corner, and then wet glue along the sides, stopping before I get to the end again. Kind of there. And I'm going to do the same for this. Okay, so no glue here yet. So I'm going to get it lined up with the end. It nicely centred in that panel. Make sure it's straight. And then I can stick my bit of double-sided tape down. And that makes sure it stays straight while I'm doing everything else. Okay, so then I want to stick it down, but I want to curve it as well. Okay, so roll it round, give that another roll. Okay, make sure it has actually stuck. Obviously, you see. I need to move that along. This is why you're using wet glue, not tape, because you can smooth it into the curve. Okay, might go around like that. He's got a kink in the middle. I don't really want, so I'm just going to see if I can lift that up. Put some more wet glue on because it's getting a bit dry. Smooth it along. Okay, got that one, and then we can do the last end. And I want all my double-sided tape at the same end, so keep track of which end that is. I've already put the double-sided tape on this, so again, peeling a corner. Adding my wet glue. I buy my glue in a big bottle and then decant into these little bottles, so it's quite useful to have one with a nozzle. that up at the end. Make sure it's straight. And that's it. Stick it down with the tape. Take the rest of the backing out. And then curve that around. Oops. Okay, so I've got a curve on all of this now. So now it's going to be a case of joining up the ends. Okay, and what I did was, rather than have a big overlap there, the reason we haven't glued this is because I want the card to go under for the join, sorry, the cream paper to go under and the paper to come over, so my join actually gets sandwiched between the two. So to do that, what I need to do is put some glue on. I need to put the glue on and then put this end in and match the ends up. Now the point that they need to go into is so that the bases of the two triangles meet. Let me try and show you. So I want it to come together. Try and get it together. So these two triangles, which are pulling apart at the moment, their bases are going to need to come together when I glue this in place. Okay, but my cream is going to go under and my foil card is going to go over. Okay, so it'll give me a join kind of like that. Yeah. Okay, so to do that, this is where it's handy to have a nozzle. So now I want to put more glue into this gap. Okay, and I want it on both the card and the paper. And I will need my paper clip again. So that's going to go in there. In far enough, and then the two get squeezed together. Hopefully with it all straight. Okay, and then you want your paper clip. Okay, and that will hold that like that while I do the next bit, which will be this bit. Okay, so again, I'm going to want to add more glue and bring this round. So putting glue inside the flap that isn't glued yet on both sides. I think this one I am going to have to hold until it sticks. Plenty of glue in there. Okay, and I'm going to bring it round so that my cream goes underneath. So I'm matching the triangles on the next end now. Fold that around. And you might need to get some fingers inside to hold it. And you can just about put your fingers in from the end. You bend your triangles a bit, but it won't matter. Don't worry about the pattern matching. You can only do so much. By the time you've decorated it, nobody will notice. Okay, so there we are. I think that's kind of grabbed. And then the other end, we do exactly the same. Into our bit we haven't stuck, lots of glue. On both sides, on the inside. Stay. And then cream on the bottom. And red on the outside until the bases of the triangles meet. And then press it down and find a paper clip. Okay, now that's it. There we are. So once the glue's dry, you take the paper clips off and you add some ribbon at either end to hold it closed. Let me bring these ones out. Okay, so the ribbons just hold the end bits in tight. There's a hole down the middle, like in a normal cracker. So if you're putting anything small in there, you might want to put it in a bag or something. But it does mean you can open out the ends like this to fill the cracker if you want to from that direction. Okay, but these ones are actually made in two halves. Okay, so if I pull this, it slides apart. It's actually kind of two crackers that have been slid together. Now if you want to do that with my template, you can. Okay, so what you need to do, now I was just finishing off cutting this one, so cut your triangles out of one side. Move them the other way. Cut your triangles out of one side, and that's the side you with the short end on. Don't bother trimming the long end. Just score along the points of the triangles. Okay, so line the points of the triangles up with your scoring tool. Get that in the right place. Okay, so that's given me a line through on the other side. So I've scored at the end of the triangles. Okay, and then on the other side, if I zoom the camera in and get the lighting right, you can see the score line. I need to trim off at that score line. Okay, let me mark it with a pencil. Take it away. So with it folded, I've scored here. And over on the other side, I can see that score line there. Oops, you can't see what I'm marking. Let me zoom the camera back out. There we are. Now you can be able to see what I'm doing. Right, so on the other side, where the score line is, you can't even see the pencil line. Oh, focus camera. Right, on the other side, there's the score line, and there's my pencil marker showing where the score line is, and I'm going to cut along that score line. I'm just going to use a pair of scissors today, but you can put it in your paper trimmer. Okay, so I've cut that chunk off. That chunk. So then when I score this, I'm going to leave it folded and score along the bases of my triangles. Okay, I've got one end of the cracker. And then if I make another one of those, and I make sure I maybe, when I glue it together, maybe taper one of them very slightly, so this end is a bit smaller, then I can slide them together. And you only decorate the end of that inner one, and you decorate both bits on the other, and then they slide together. So then it becomes more like a gift box. Okay. There. Okay, so that's how you make one that comes apart like that. As I say, or you can make the whole thing. Okay. And obviously I've put this together quite quickly, so I've got a few lumps and bumps, but by the time you put your decoration over any lumps and bumps you get in your gluing, then they're not going to show. So there we are, foiled Christmas crackers. Let's take these paper clips off. There we are. So that's staying together now. You might find that along some very edges you need a little bit more glue just to finish it off. But there it is. Okay. Move that out of the way. So just add some ribbon at the ends to hold them in, and whatever embellishments you want on the centrepiece. Okay, thank you for watching.